Hi everybody, my name is Mikko Hypponen and we'll be spending the next 30 minutes in this turbo talk talking about you will be billed $90,000 for this call. So let me just outline real quick about the company I represent. F-Secure has 850 people in 22 countries. We've been around for 22 years researching viruses. The last 10 of those, one of our focus areas has been focusing on mobile malware, mobile attacks of various kinds. So we've analyzed viruses on Symbian, on iPhone, on Blackberries, on Android, and so on. So that's one of the things we do. Although most of our revenues come from working with ISPs to protect traditional Windows computers. But I really want to start by asking you a question. How many of you had one of these? Oh my God. Yes. That's pretty much, first of all, it dates us. And second of all, yeah, they were great devices, US Robotics. Funny thing, when I tried to find this image, I found it from US Robotics website. US Robotics is still around. They are still around today. They have 120 employees, which was a bit of a surprise to me. So it's sort of disappeared. But that's a modem. That's how we used to get online. In fact, we all used to have modems. In fact, some of our computers still do. Fact is, my ThinkPad here, which is like 3 years old, still has a modem slot for a telephone line. Of course, it's never connected to a telephone line anymore. There is a modem. And back then, when everybody used to have a modem and it used to be connected to a telephone line, we had a problem, particular problem what used to be known as dialers, or more specifically, porn dialers. So Windows trojans that would infect your computer and then start making phone calls with your modem and charge money back to you. Quite a bit of these were obvious to the user. They told the user with the EULA that, you know, we will show you porn images or porn movies, and as we show them to you, we'll at the same time we'll be making phone calls to a 1-900 number. And people, of course, ignored that completely because they never read EULAs, especially if they've just downloaded an application to look at porn, they're just going to ignore that. So this was a problem, and this actually was something that many antiviruses put quite a lot of effort into detecting. But this problem went away. We haven't seen new dialers using built-in modems to do this in quite a while, because nobody has modems anymore. We all today go online with our Wi-Fis, with our DSL modems, which can't be used to issue calls to 1-900 numbers, and so on. So, in a nutshell, the point of my talk is here. That's a code snippet to make a ping, to send one ping packet. Basically, this code snippet right here, which is some Linux source code somewhere, creates a connection between two devices. That's what it does, right? Very simple. Let me show you another code snippet. This code snippet makes a telephone call. This is actually code from a smartphone system, actually from a Symbian system. It makes a telephone call, which is a connection between two devices, right? You follow me? So basically, these two things make the same thing. They create a connection between two devices. However, there is one crucial difference. When this code of sending ping packet is executed, no money is being moved. When this code is executed, this is actually a money transaction. It actually moves money around. Because when you make a phone call, you pay for the call. Now imagine if traditional virus writers who write Windows viruses today would have such an easy mechanism today to extract money from infected computers. That would be like their wet dream. Of course, they don't have that, so they have to go through these, frankly, very complex mechanisms of extracting money from infected computers, like dropping a spam bot to an infected computer, then sending spam through the infected machine to try to advertise Viagra, then sell Viagra. You know, it's pretty complicated. Or to drop a keylogger on an infected Windows box, then wait for the user to go online to make online purchases, get his credit card number, then use his credit card number to make purchases, get yourself laptops, resell them. Again, very complicated. Yet, this is what they're doing. Although this is complicated, they still do this. If they would have a direct mechanism of just extracting money straight off from infected computers, it would be their wet dream. But they don't have that. They used to have it 10 years ago when we had modems. They don't anymore. So, another problem with these premium rate numbers comes from, well, there's quite a bit of difference worldwide when we look at these premium rate numbers where you can dial and which actually cost you extra money. Here in USA, these are the 1-900 numbers. When you go to other countries, you pretty much have these in every single country around the world. In Finland, where I'm based, these are the 0-700 numbers, and they can charge you anything from 10 cents a minute to $9 a minute or something like that. Now, 1-900 numbers have several problems from the point of view of the attackers. First of all, you have to have initial investment to get started. You have to actually pay money to subscribe to one of these services that outsource 1-900 phone lines, typically around $900, maybe $1,000 to get started, which is a barrier. Second problem is that FTC, who regulates these in USA, makes it mandatory that there has to be an audio warning or preamble at the beginning of the call telling you where you're calling and who runs it, who owns it, and how much you're going to pay. Even more importantly, if you run fraud, for example, if you would have a dialer today that would automatically issue calls to a 1-900 number and would do it completely illegally without the user knowing, users would realize, they would see this, they would complain, and this would be shut down before any money is moved to the criminal. This has been designed just to prevent fraud like this. You don't get the money immediately. There's a 30-day delay before the number owner gets the money out of the calls, which is pretty neat in preventing fraud like this. One thing which was a bit of a surprise to me when I realized this is that here in USA you can't call premium rate numbers from a cell phone. You can't. They only work from landlines. Of course, landlines are going away. Everywhere else, as far as I know, they do work, like local premium rate numbers anywhere in Europe, anywhere in Asia, do work from cell phones. Of course they do. I don't actually know why you can't call a 1-900 number here in USA, but you can't. Which means if somebody wants to write a smartphone Trojan to call premium rate numbers, they can't use a 1-900 number. And the last barrier is that these numbers are not international. From USA, you can't call a 0-700 premium rate number in Finland. It will not work. From Finland, if I try to call 1-900 number, it won't work. I'll actually play you an audio clip. What happens when I try to use my phone in Finland to dial one of your numbers.
The call you are attempting to place is not allowed from this line. Please dial 611 for customer service.
Basically says that yeah. Oh, it's okay. But it basically says that you just can't reach this number. The call is not allowed from your area code. Basically, you can't do this international. All right, so let's think from the bad points point of view. This doesn't work. If they want to have premium rate numbers, want to extract money automatically with malware, they have to do it with some other mechanism than 1-900 numbers. Enter this forum posting from last March. This was posted on XDA Developers, which is an online forum for smartphone users. This one guy wrote this posting explaining that he was woken up on Sunday morning at 2:40 a.m. He woke up because he was sleeping right next to his phone and the lights on his phone turned on. And he looked at his phone and his phone was making a phone call. All right? So he looked at the log and realized that his phone had actually made a number of calls. So he was baffled about this. He made this posting. He listed the numbers that he found from his phone call logs and asked, does anybody have any idea what's going on? Well, nobody had an idea. No replies. Nothing happened for 5 days. Then, 5 days later, suddenly new users started registering on this forum and started posting replies to this forum. And basically all the replies were along the lines that, you know what? Same thing happened on my phone. I'm from Denmark. And same thing happened from my phone. I'm from Tokyo. So people from all over the world started posting replies on this one forum posting. Because what happened is that they had the same thing happening on their phone. They saw from their call logs the number where their phone had dialed in. And of course what they'll do is that they'll Google for the number. What else do you do? And when you Googled for any of these numbers, you got one hit only, which was this forum posting. So obviously all the people who were trying to figure out what was going on with their phone ended up replying on the same thread. So then somebody pointed this out to us. And we went to the same forum. We posted there basically, explaining that we're an antivirus company. We work with mobile antivirus for a long time. We're pretty confident this is an antivirus, or this is a virus or worm or Trojan doing this. And we asked people who were affected by this to post a list of applications they have installed on their devices. And all the users who were complaining were running Windows Mobile. Windows Mobile 6 or Windows Mobile 6.5. And people posted whatever applications they had installed. And they had different email clients, different calendar applications, different games. But one thing they all had, one thing that was common in all these devices all over the world which were doing this, was that they all had this game. 3D anti-terrorist action, which is a 3D shooting game. It's actually a Counter-Strike clone. It's actually a very good game. It's very fast, very nice game. And it's made by this Chinese company called Hypponen. And Hypponen is a fairly large OEM game manufacturer writing 3D games. And they've done nothing wrong. This is a commercial game written a year and a half ago, being sold by Hypponen, typically for $5 or so. What happened was that an unknown Russian hacker got this commercial game, cracked it, removed copy protection, then created a copycat website of Hypponen, registered a new domain name that sounded similar, copied the content over, and then posed himself that I am the developer of this game, and submitted the cracked version of the game as a free demo to several Windows Mobile download sites around the world, sites where people can download games from their phones. And it is a good game, and now it was free. And of course, these download sites believed that it's the real deal. It all looked real, right? How would they know that this guy who was coming from this website isn't actually the real company? And of course, the modification of removing copy protection wasn't the only thing modified in the game. The main modification that was done to the game was this. The hacker had added a small code snippet which modified the system to work so that when the game was installed initially, it waited for a delay of random amount of hours, somewhere between 0 and 12 hours, and then it issued a series of phone calls to these 8 numbers listed right here. And it waited for, in hex C350, that's 50,000 timer ticks, waited for the call to go on, and then it shut down the call and issued another call. And once it had called all of these numbers, these 8 numbers, then it slept for 31 days. After 31 days, it repeated the calls and slept for 31 days. That's what it does. And when you call these numbers, these will create you around $12 in costs. And the logic in doing this only every 31 days is that most of us have a monthly bill. If you don't have a prepaid number, then you typically get a monthly bill. If you get an extra $12 international calls in your bill, well, some of us will notice, some of us won't. I wouldn't notice, for example. I have, so much international calls anyway that $12 would easily go through. So what are these numbers? Where was the phone actually calling? Well, it was calling the South goddamn Pole. Yes, it was calling Antarctica, it was calling Dominican Republic, it was calling different satellite providers, it was calling Somalia in Africa, Sao Tome and Principe, which is a very small island nation right outside of Africa on the west coast. And it's pretty obvious that, if you call faraway places like this, it's going to be an expensive call. Everybody understands that. If you're going to call the South Pole, it's going to cost you money, right? So how does the guy get money out of this? That's the crucial part. How does this actually work so that the guy running this operation is able to get money out of it and is able to do it without getting caught and is able to continue it, although there might be attempts to take him down? And this is all done by the fact that these numbers are so-called international premium rate numbers, which means they are not premium rate numbers. They're perfectly normal numbers in perfectly normal number space, but they are very expensive and they're built so that they actually fund money back to the person who's operating the number. And this means that these numbers will work from anywhere in the world and they will work from cell phones. So if you compare these numbers to the 1-900 numbers here in USA, well, you can call this from USA, you can call this from cell phones, and they will generate money to the person operating it. They do all the things that you cannot do with 1-900 numbers. And they will work from any country in the world. Any phone, anywhere in the world, will be able to call these numbers, and they will fund money back to the operator. And these are called illegal call terminations, also known as short stopping or long lining. And the basic idea is actually very simple. Let's, for example, assume that we want to make a phone call from here in Nevada to Somalia.